Hello everybody, thank you for joining. This is a very important video for anybody who owns any Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency or isn't planning on buying any type of cryptocurrency. It goes into details as to the risk posed by governments, what they can do, how they can ban it, and at the very end I'll come to my conclusion whether or not it's worth worrying about or not. So as usual, let's just jump right in. So the topic today is Bitcoin banned. Can it be banned? First of all, disclaimer, this is not investment advice, just my point of view for entertainment purposes only. I'm going to look at a whole bunch of different data points to come to a solid conclusion at the end of the video, so please stay tuned for that. And of course, if you like this content, a thumbs up mean a lot to me, and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's jump in. First of all, what are the odds of Bitcoin being banned? There's so much stuff in the media all over the world. And just lately, just over the weekend, there was a huge explosion in some of the activities and things that are happening in places like Nigeria and India. And people are wondering, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for us? So I'm going to go through that in great detail. So hopefully we'll be through this in about 10 minutes. But first of all, let's talk about a little bit of game theory. This is something I first came across about 20 years ago in business school. And basically the concept here is rationality fails. So imagine two countries representative of prisoners in a prison. Sometimes paradoxically, they don't make the right decision for the long-term future, but they try and protect themselves for immediate gain. So here is a very nice little chart where you see on the top left-hand corner, ban will always fail and Bitcoin adoption will always accelerate no matter what a country tries to do. And it'll actually make fiat currencies deteriorate more quickly if a country doesn't actually cooperate with Bitcoin. So that is country B banning Bitcoin, country A banning Bitcoin. What happens if country B bans Bitcoin and country A adopts it as a standard? The capital outflows from country B will go into country A. You may see some of this happening right now between India and Pakistan, for example. What happens if country B accepts Bitcoin and country A bans Bitcoin? Obviously, the capital outflows will go from country A to country B. And if country B accepts Bitcoin and country A accepts Bitcoin, everybody wins. Everybody benefits from trade and specialization. So you can see here, either way, though, Bitcoin wins. So as I sometimes like to refer to, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and Bitcoin's already out there. But let's jump in and talk about some of the different countries and what they're actually doing today. First of all, India. They've been on-off with banning Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But very recently, just a week or so ago, they've decided they're going to create their own CBDC, which is central bank digital currency. You're going to hear a lot more of that as we go forward. Many countries around the world are actually laying out their plans now to develop one. So that's India. A bit surprising India is taking this stance, but hopefully they'll come to their senses. The Russian government recently just banned all government officials from holding crypto. And the penalty is very severe if you're caught holding crypto. So again, Russia, you don't want to get into trouble there. The gulags are not very pleasant. Okay, Nigeria, also hitting the headlines recently. The Central Bank of Nigeria has passed a circular that basically all bank transactions in Bitcoin and other virtual currencies have been banned. Note as well, the only thing that people in Nigeria are looking at Google for is how to buy Bitcoin. So it's interesting that, the governments pass a law and the people are desperate to work around it and circumvent it. Again, like the prisoner's dilemma, people will always find a way around. Iran. This is another interesting paradox. Central bank has banned the use of crypto. And at the same time, Iran has adopted Bitcoin for international trade because the sanctions are so stringent and they can't buy supplies they need or sell the stuff that they have, like oil, with anything but Bitcoin. So they also have a failing Rial, their local currency, and soaring inflation. The classic situation when a government, is suffering. What's the first thing they do? They try to protect themselves. But this is, again, a strange situation. Let's talk about China. So China, they have obviously one of the most strict regimes in the world, also for cryptocurrency trading, but they haven't completely banned Bitcoin. But They're looking at doing that on a regional basis to some extent. They haven't quite figured out what to do, especially considering the amount of mines that exist, Bitcoin mines and crypto mines that exist in China. So that's a tricky one, but we'll keep tabs on it. Another country of note, Kyrgyzstan banned all cryptocurrencies as a payment method, including Bitcoin and altcoins. However, there's no law preventing residents from buying and selling Bitcoin. So good for them. It's weird to be kind of a semi-ban, but at least the people there locally, if they want to secure their freedom, they can at least buy some Bitcoin. Bolivia, another interesting one. They believe that Bitcoin is supported by criminal practices. Obviously, there's been some drug problems in the past in places like Bolivia. And they said the use of all virtual coins is prohibited. Bangladesh. Another B. The Computer Crime Unit, Government Police Department, are now pursuing anybody who is buying or selling any Bitcoin or any other type of cryptocurrencies, and they're clamping down hard, which is not a nice thing. Ecuador, another situation. The Ecuadorian government issued a ban on Bitcoin, other digital currencies, to establish their new electronic digital currency as well. Kind of very like the India case. So let's look at the common symptoms of all of these countries and try determine a pattern as we go forward. So the first common system is extremely high levels of corruption. So I pulled up the Global Corruption Index and their ranking in the world, and you can see the most corrupt places on earth: Iran, Nigeria, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Bolivia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and then following up closely places like Ecuador, China, and India. So corruption is a common trait of these countries. By the way, as a benchmark, I put Denmark in there because they are the least corrupt of all places on earth. Second thing, inflation. Obviously, a big driver of crisis in a country is inflation. It's the most punitive tax on the population. And you can see here that some of these countries have chronic inflation. The Rial in Iran is at 46.2% per year. Nigeria has nearly 16% inflation. And these are government published numbers, so you know that the real inflation is much higher. Just like in the US, they'll say the CPI is 2.3% or something like that, when in reality it's probably like 7 or 10%. So you go down the list, you can see inflation is a common problem. The third piece that I like to look at is the autocracy to democracy relationship and correlation. You can see again, the most democratic country on earth happens to be Denmark, interesting enough. You got Ecuador with a rank of 79. So it's a deficient democracy. And then you got regime, autocracy, and then a hard autocracy at the very end. So I think everybody sees the patterns here. The countries that are banning Bitcoin, they have no democracy. They have chronic inflation, and they're very corrupt. Perfect ingredient. But we're going to go a little bit further. So why do these countries want to ban Bitcoin? Obviously, number one, it's a perceived threat to their monetary system. And number two, they want to build their own currency or have some way of controlling the wealth. That's very, very important. You don't want individuals in your society under an autocratic regime becoming financially free. How are you supposed to control the people then? It's impossible. So you can see these are the things that make them very nervous. So let's jump into the conclusion real quick. As usual in every one of my videos, I'll have a bunch of conclusions, and it's very important to stay to the end. So another little analogy here is the starfish and the spider. If anybody's actually read that book, spiders typically are command and control systems. If you cut the head off the spider, it'll cease to exist. The question is, can you cut the head off Bitcoin? No, you can't. So Bitcoin is very like a starfish, and it represents decentralized structures. So if you chop a limb off a starfish, it will regrow one. If you cut a starfish in half, it'll become two starfish, which is super fascinating. Second conclusion, everything is node to node. So anybody can build their own node in their own house. We've got Jack Dorsey, who built his own node very recently and published it. And it's not hard to do. So I think in places like Nigeria, individuals will start building their own nodes. I can imagine a big uptake in node building there. And then people will use those to create their own financial system to be able to transact with cryptocurrencies. Third conclusion, people have always tried to, in a most secure system like a prison, prevent things like drugs and drug dealing happen, but they can't. No matter how high or how strict the penitentiary is, there is always an illicit trade. So again, for things like Bitcoin, the government can try to stamp it out, but they're not going to beat it. Fourth, most importantly, the US will not ban it. The new Biden administration has a lot of pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin people on staff. I've talked about this actually in a recent video, but we have a lot of champions now that are extremely supportive of all things crypto as they go forward. In fact, they highlight things like a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is so transparent, they can actually leverage it to identify criminals. And of course, we all know that less than 1% of all Bitcoin currency is used for illicit crimes. So the smart people are aware of that. Fifth thing, there's a lot of rumors going around that Bitcoin has been banned in the United Kingdom. It hasn't. But what they have done is they've banned derivatives of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies for use by amateur investors. And this is very important because tomorrow, the CME futures are launching their Ethereum derivatives as well. So again, you see the disjoint here between places like the United States and the United Kingdom, and the US, thank God, is going headlong down the path of allowing things like derivatives, where the UK is banning them from individual retail investors. So as usual, watch out for FUD. There's going to be a lot of it coming. A lot of people are going to say, oh, governments can ban Bitcoin. The truth is they can't. And just look at the type of countries that are actually banning it today. Again, high inflation, highly corrupt, autocratic regimes. Makes perfect sense for them to ban it because they need to control their people and they can't. If you like more of this, jump onto Patreon and Invest Answers, get a deeper look inside my head, and consider me the Swiss Army knife in your back pocket. Big thank you for all the support. Over 350 patrons in less than a week, which is massive. I'm active in the comments below and the black bubble. Watch out. There's people that will promise you Bitcoin, give you Telegram numbers and WhatsApp numbers. Just ignore them all. I'll never ask you for anything. Thanks all. Have a good day.